At 4ZZZ, we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we broadcast. We pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal and Jagera people. We acknowledge that their sovereignty over this land was never ceded.
And we stand in solidarity with them.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ, amplifying the trans and gender non-conforming voices of Brisbane and beyond.
Good morning, Magan-djin. You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which 4ZZZ and Transmission broadcast, which is the Jagera, Turrbal and Jagera people. This land, not ours. Yeah, it's stolen. Sovereignty was never ceded, and we do the best we can here at 4ZZZ and Transmission to pay that damn rent. Yeah, we got a packed episode of Transmission today. I'm back after a little bit of a hiatus. It's weird. I'm in the hot seat by myself. My name's Ez, he, him pronouns, in case you don't know. Today, we've got a special interview. Jay talks to Vera Drew, who is the director of a film called The People's Joker, which kind of is released. I don't know. It's a little... We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later in this episode. Also, the week in community events and news. There's quite a bit to catch up on because I've been holding on to some things for the last month or so. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so the coming week, we've got lots of events. Most of these you can follow on the Justice for Palestine social media pages. That's Justice for Palestine, all one word. There's lots of different ones for different cities, but mostly the one that you're after is Magan-djin, which is our city that you're in. So yeah, let's do that one. So tomorrow, which is Wednesday, 6th of March from 6 p.m, there is a public meeting, Action for Palestine at the Queensland Council for Unions, which is 16 Peel Street in South Brisbane. This is to help build solidarity with the people of Palestine, opportunities to join actions and upskill in activism and organisation roles, if you're interested in that. If you've been waiting to do more for Palestine, this is your opportunity to make that difference. So yeah, check that out. There's also, on Thursday, protests out the front of Queensland Government complicity in genocide. So at the Queensland Parliament House this Thursday from 7:30 a.m. So yeah, Vera Engineering, if you haven't heard of them before, make weapons, which essentially, long story short, ends up in the hands of the wrong people. And then, yeah, so we want to protest against that, and you can do that. So that's this Thursday, 7th of March, 7:30 a.m. And then Justice for Palestine, again, this Saturday, 9th of March, there's a Raise the Flag for Palestine, which is a peaceful protest calling on Brisbane City Council to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and declare Brisbane an apartheid-free zone. We will be waving the Palestinian flags from the Victoria Bridge and along the South Bank riverfront. Bring your Palestine flags, large or small, go support them. That's this Saturday, 9th of March from 10 a.m, from the river to the sea. What the heck? What's going on? I've been away for a month. It's just getting worse out there. Trans people always stand in solidarity for what's right, and Palestinian lives matter, and ceasefire now. Please, love of God. Jesus, so bad. Anyway, in other news and other events to catch up on, this Sunday, the 9th of March, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m, this is a completely free and all-ages event. It's a queer and trans community day at Bunyappa Park in West End. Come together and show our strength, love and joy as a community. The intention of this day is stand against the anti-trans rallies being held here in Magan-djin and at the same time around the country. Together, let's stand against these people who want power over how we identify and power over how we live our lives. There will be speakers, live music and food available on the day. That's this Sunday, 10th of March from 10 a.m, Bunyappa Park. Yeah, sounds cute. You should get along. Also, we've got some news. I don't spend enough time on YouTube, but people sent me some updates on a very popular YouTube star, Finster, who took to social media this last week to come out as trans. So, woo! Which is apparently no surprise to anyone. Finster himself, yes, he goes by he, him pronouns. Here, anyway, I'm just going to play some of the words from this little clip of him. Yeah.
So, trans? Gender? Okay, look, I think that's gonna cause some debate, and I don't want to be the one to have it. I think the label that suits me best is gender fluid. But look, whenever I tell people about this in real life, what I say is, I just don't care.
Yeah, cool. Finster's out. That's great. Wish him all the best. And should his pronouns change, I will also change how I refer to him. So yeah. Also, in other news, federal investigation announced into the bullying claims around the death of Nex Benedict. If you don't know, Nex Benedict is a young Choctaw person from Oklahoma who passed away, 16 years old, as a result of potentially bullying. They're still not entirely sure what was the cause of death, or they haven't released that information yet. Nex Benedict is the non-binary teen, so died last month after a fight with some classmates in the bathroom at their high school. The U.S. Department of Education said in a letter on Friday that it was investigating whether Owasso public schools outside of Tulsa had failed to appropriately respond to alleged harassment of students, which is a violation of federal law. Authorities said that they were responding to a complaint brought by Kelly Robinson, who is the president of the LGBTQ+ rights group, the Human Rights Campaign, that claimed the school district had notice of sex-based harassment at the high school, including instances of bullying, violence, and harassment, that it had failed to respond appropriately to discrimination, basically. So it's absolutely horrendous. I was really rattled when I saw the news of Nex. I had a big cry. It's always really heartbreaking to see trans, Indigenous people anywhere suffering the fate that they're faced. And it's just, it's awful. Nex was a Choctaw kid. So I'm decided that I'm going to play a song by a Choctaw artist, Samantha Crain. Samantha Crain sings this song in the Choctaw language. It's called When We Remain. Some of the lyrics that I'll just translate for you now are, when we remain, we will not be like the beautiful bones of a forgotten city. When we remain, we will be the flowers and the trees of the vines that overcome the forgotten city. We have woven ourselves into the cloth of the earth. We have mixed our breath into the expanding sky. Sending our love to you. Next, this song is for you.
Q-Life is Australia's first nationally oriented counselling and referral service for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender and intersex or LGBTI people. Q-Life provides peer-supported telephone and web-based services to diverse people of all ages. They help callers with a range of issues relating to sexuality and gender, including coming out, as well as more general issues such as relationship problems. So remember, you can call the Q-Life line daily from 5:30pm till 10:30pm on 1800 184 527. And for online chat and support, go to qlife.org.au.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ. My name is Ez. I use he, him pronouns. All music that you hear on Transmission between 9 and 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ is by trans or gender diverse artists. That's how we do it. That's how we do things. So I hope you're enjoying those tunes, them sounds. We're about to jump into an interview. Jay Bowman, fantastic. You may know Jay from No Idea, which is the science and tech show on Wednesdays on 4ZZZ, also from their podcast. But Jay also does the occasional stuff here as well for Transmission, and he interviews Vera Drew, who is the director of a film called The People's Joker. I'm just going to hit play and let him do all the talking. So let's do it.
Jay here. About a year ago, I got the chance to watch The People's Joker. It's a movie by Emmy-nominated TV editor, writer, actor, and director Vera Drew that turns the Joker into a semi-autobiographical tale about discovering yourself as a young trans woman. The film was created with the help of over 200 artists, all contributing their skills into bringing it to life. But the day before it was set to premiere at Toronto Film Festival, Warner Brothers wrote to the festival organisers to try and get the movie pulled. Since then, Vera has been fighting to get The People's Joker into cinemas, while secretly screening it in the US and here in Australia. Just recently, The People's Joker was finally freed, and it showed at Mardi Gras Film Festival last week. I caught up with Vera over Zoom to chat the process of fighting to get her movie seen and trans perspectives on cinema.
The People's Joker has finally been freed, thank God. What's that whole experience been like?
Oh, pretty. I made the movie to process a bunch of trauma, and honestly, the release of it has been very traumatic. But ultimately, pretty awesome. I spent a good chunk of last year moving to a place of acceptance that I would probably need to self-distribute it. the only thing that kind of was giving me hope of like finding somebody for the States was that I got distribution in Australia before long before, like while the controversy was happening. So I held out hope. Um, but yeah, it was finally like, it was pretty scary, like kind of taking it out there and to festivals and stuff, especially like after the experience I had at TIFF. But, we did a fair amount of like secret screenings, both in Australia and in the States. And that definitely like helped me kind of rebuild my confidence, made me feel a lot less intimidated by Warner Brothers and stuff. The legal stuff is scary for a lot of people, and they don't want to like burn a bridge or anything. But yeah, I mean, I've just been confident every step of the way that this movie is protected by fair use and parody law. Like it does all the same stuff that like Scary Movie does, and the Naked Gun movies, and there's that movie Disaster Movie that came out like 15 years ago, like one of those like Scary Movie knockoffs. And Batman is literally in that. Like he's a character in the movie, and they even use like a Danny Elfman style sting. So like people have done this kind of stuff forever. Nobody's ever done it though, like where they've like adapted their life story to it. So I think that's like what's a little unprecedented about it.
Why the Joker? Like, what is it about the Joker specifically that you felt you could map your life story to?
Well, I think like primarily, like Todd Phillips' Joker did inspire me a lot. Like when I saw it, just like aside from like the move, the People's Joker, like I was really kind of moved by it. Like just the fact that they were able to like distill like class warfare is at in the States, and like the mental health crisis, and like institutionalized like just how like fucked every like American like public service is, and like that we're just like in this pressure cooker right now. Like the fact that that was a movie that was made, it was a superhero movie, and it was like it like made $1 billion. Like it really kind of I don't know, it kind of like woke me up a little bit. Like I don't think it's a perfect movie, and I think because of how like simplistic a lot of its political messages, like a lot of like horrible people can project their ideology onto it, but like that's also what's kind of cool about it in a way, because it is so like shoved down our throats that these characters are like our modern myths. And like that was an instance where like I saw the movie and I was like, hey, as a mentally ill trans woman who is an American, like I can totally relate to this character who is just being completely failed by family, by his government and stuff. So I think that was like a huge component of it. And just like historically, Joker's always just been very queer. Like, I mean, a major component of the Batman stories that I love, like particularly like, Grant Morrison's portrayal and Arkham Asylum, and I mean, everybody kind of circles the fact that Batman and the Joker are like kind of lovers, and like they kind of are these like this like toxic couple in a way that like represent these two polar extremes of like order and chaos, and like they need each other to survive, and they're like at odds with each other, which is just deeply queer. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like I feel like the like hunt for identity is just very prevalent in a lot of those like Batman stories in a way that like it isn't in many comic book stuff. And I think that's why, as a kid, I was really like, that was my representation. Like there's a whole scene in the movie where, young Joker goes and sees this like basically she's going and seeing Batman Forever and like realizing she's trans. And I had that experience at like 6 years old of going to see Batman Forever. Like there is just something in the DNA of comic book characters that has always really, it's been my queer representation for as long as I could remember.
Yeah, I think that's like such a beautiful way of putting it, because like we haven't necessarily always had that representation, but we've always been able to find it. I feel like The People's Joker is a trans story on like a lot of levels. It's not just like about the actual content of the film, but there's like stuff to get into with the entire idea of like parody and like rewriting, taking something that's been defined and like rewriting it your own way. You've been fighting for the film's like right to self-determination, basically. You've been like constantly changing and recreating parts of it. Do you think that there's like a trans way to make film?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing it, and I think I think there's like a lot of us doing it right now. It's funny because like I actually get annoyed sometimes when like people like, and this isn't what you asked, but people have like said things like how do you feel like you're part of like a movement of trans filmmakers or something, and it's like a lot of us are friends and like we all know each other and hang out and party together and stuff, but like I don't think any of us really think of ourselves as being in like a movement or anything. But there is such like a through line between everybody's kind of voice, and I don't know, it's really cool. Like I worked in TV for like 10 years and got really kind of jaded in the process, like, and I worked on so many cool things, like, and that wasn't the part of it that made me jaded. The part of it that made me jaded is just like trying to find a space to like tell my own story was very hard for me, and I was able to find it sometimes. I was able to find like fun, subtle ways to like inject my identity into the things I was making. Like, I don't know, a lot of us really have to, I think most of us, like, we have to like kind of punch a hole into reality to sort of forge the careers we want in arts and entertainment. There's a lot of us that are established that are, and not like in indie circles, like that are still having to do that. Like Shady Patowski is like somebody that comes to mind who's like an amazing writer, and like I know is also like always thrown into like a world of shit just because of like her identity. And it's like I think the fact that like we have to face that stuff in our industry, like it ends up getting really reflected in our work and in how we want to do our work. Like I have a few projects coming up, hopefully after The People's Joker. Like those exist because I punched a hole into reality and made this movie at all cost. And I think that's kind of the through line that I see with like a lot of my, trans siblings who are making films right now too. We're just doing it at all costs. We're making movies like there's like microchips in our brains that are about to explode at any minute. I think it's fucking beautiful just because like, yeah, like coming from a place of being jaded about art, like it really does feel like cinema is alive and exciting right now. And a lot of that does just come down to like how queer it's become.
Yeah, for sure. And the movie like jumps styles and mediums so often. I think it's like over 200 artists were involved, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
And it's partly in Roblox. Some people have been like green screened from Zoom and all that sort of thing. It kind of reminds me of those like fan animation projects that really thrive in like pockets of online queer spaces. Did it feel strange translating that to the big screen, I guess?
I think that was like the exciting part about it, just because like I hadn't really ever seen anybody do that. I really wanted it to feel like authentically like a DIY internet thing, but like an elevated version of it, I guess. When I wrote the movie with Brie LaRose, my co-writer, we both had pretty specific visions in our heads, I think, when we were writing it, of like what the movie was going to look like and stuff. But that was also really accompanied by us a lot of the time kind of turning to each other and being like, how the hell are we going to shoot this? Like, I don't know. It was kind of nice just because like we kind of just yes-anded each other every step of the way, and like just banked on the fact that we had this like incredible talented community of artists, most of whom were queer or trans. Like it was really easy to kind of just go like, this is going to come to life one way or another. And I wasn't too worried about like my vision getting lost or my identity being lost, because I knew like my dumb face was going to be on screen for most of the movie, Like it was literally going to get like a chance to do like a show-stopping number at the end and stuff. So like it was already a pretty big like vanity project in this way. So like being able to go like, and like it's this big just collectivist like art project, I think is like why it works. So that's been really cool, just because again, like coming from TV where like you get a piece of art from somebody and you're like, oh, this is wrong, we got to redo it or whatever. Like the People's Joker, it was always like, rather than going back to that artist and being like, this is all wrong, it's like, no, like let's just make this work. It was just really like, where do these artists shine, and like how can we kind of try to create like a cohesive vision with it, while also like really letting these people do like the work that they feel confident represents their identity.
My chat with Vera will continue in a moment. We'll talk about representing trans experiences on TV and film, and making sure that we can talk about our trauma without re-traumatizing each other. But for now, let's listen to a little bit of music.
Amplifying the voices of the trans and gender non-conforming community of Magan-djin, Brisbane and beyond.
Transmission on 4ZZZ brings you the latest in trans community news, music and events.
Every Tuesday from 9am till 10am.
Join our team of hosts for an hour of celebrating the unique perspectives of the trans community.
Transmission, Tuesday mornings from 9am till 10am on 4ZZZ.
You're listening to Transmission on 4ZZZ, and I'm Jay. I've been chatting to Emmy-nominated TV creative Vera Drew, the creator of The People's Joker. It's a parody film that reimagines the Gotham villain as a trans woman navigating the world early in her transition. Here's more of our conversation.
I remember reading The Transition Baby, and while I was reading that book, I felt this real kind of joy and pride that I was reading something that was unapologetically confronting and like a little problematic in places, and like inaccessible to cis audiences. That's what I felt like. I was like, I don't know if I gave this to like someone who wasn't trans, if they'd even like understand what is going on. And I loved that. And I kind of get that from The People's Joker too. Was there a level of conscious rejection of that, or does it just come naturally with when you're telling trans stories?
I think it kind of just comes naturally when you're telling trans stories. It's funny because like I do think the People's Joker is like aggressively trans. Like I wanted it to be aggressively trans in a way that like it is very clear that it is primarily for trans people. Like and really it's for 13-year-old me. Like I really made this movie for like it's just really expensive inner child work. So like that's why it does, I think, feel that way. But I've been really pleasantly surprised how a lot of cis audiences are reacting to it too. Like particularly like mothers and cis women who have like intense relationships with their moms or their daughters. Like really one of the like best experiences I had screening this movie happened the night we premiered it at TIFF, and I had this woman come up to me. She was just like, thank you for making this, because like I finally like understand how to like talk to my daughter, because her daughter's trans. And it was such a like I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about it, to be honest, just because like I have a tricky relationship with my mom, as people can tell when they watch my movie. And like being able to basically like screen it and have somebody like my mom who's trying to learn how to love a trans person have it resonate with them, like that's just been so that kind of stuff is so cool. I think like the first couple drafts of the movie it was a lot darker, I think, on the page. That first draft kind of got me in a headspace where I was like, oh shit, like I really am like making this to heal a little bit. And I don't know that like the way for me to heal is to make a 90-minute fuck you letter to my family. You know, I definitely wanted a little bit of that in there. But I also wanted to walk away from it feeling like there was a path forward, and like what, you know, if I really mythologize my life, like what is the thing that I want. And it's just like, I wish I could have grown up during a time where like my parents and other people's parents understood what this shit was. So yeah, I really made it my purpose to like not only like dedicate the movie to my mom and Angel Schumacher, but use it as an opportunity to kind of heal and think about that relationship in a way that was less victim minded and more like what's the path forward. And the same thing with you know the love story that's happening throughout it. Like I wanted them to have like, you know, in the movie we call it like they have a happy beginning, like they're each other's happy beginning. They don't have a happy ending together, but you know, they both kind of get each other started on this pathway back to authenticity. And to me, that's like what you can really take away from like those kind of like boundaryless, codependent, toxic T for T relationships so many of us find ourselves in sometimes. You know, like we need people like that in our lives to sort of like move forward. And sometimes, you know, a lot of us, the first person that loves us unconditionally, like that very first person is also somebody that should not be in our lives for longer than a few months. And yeah, I think I really wanted to write about that in like an honest way that also, because also, you know, the movie is very intense for a lot of like trans people when they watch it. And I kind of I didn't know it was going to like have the resonance it's had with people and like the, you know, amount of audiences that want to see it or how much it would like mean to people too. But like, I knew there would be like, that it's kind of a triggering movie to watch. So like it might as well have a happy ending, you know, it might as well like say something instead of just going like, look how horrible it is to be trans right now in the United States. Like it definitely does that, but it also hopefully shows like what we can do, you know, with what we're given, I guess.
Yeah, I really felt that with the movie, that it was like very authentically saying like these things are hard, but there's a way through, and like we're on that path. Thank you so much for having a chat to me. I really appreciate it, and I'm so keen to see the movie again. I honestly can't wait.
This was a lovely conversation.
How many genders are there?
I don't know. I just got here.
My name is Ez. I use he, him pronouns. And yeah, we were just listening to an interview with Jay and Vera Drew, the director of The People's Joker. Wow, sounds great. I can't wait to watch it. I'm going to figure out how I do that, but it will happen. It will come out. It's a thing. It's very exciting. I've been away for a little while from being on air, mostly because sometimes being on air on 4ZZZ, particularly when you're doing shows like this one, Transmission, a show that sort of stems in activism and community, and a community that experiences a lot of hardship, and me, myself, as a trans person, you know, life is tricky, and it's a lot harder to navigate this world with these expectations on gender and all this sort of stuff, and I had to put my mental health first. So I decided to step back for a month and let co-hosts take over the show, and they did a phenomenal job. So grateful to such a supportive team. 4ZZZ are overall just an incredibly supportive organization that have looked out for me, and they look out for so many other announcers here and the space that they need with whatever project they're working on, whether that be on air or off air. And I'm so grateful, and it's totally a reason to subscribe. And I want to say thanks to Rue and two other people who subscribed during the show this morning. Your names haven't appeared, but the light went off, so I know you're there. Thank you, Rue from Wollongabba, for subscribing to 4ZZZ. 4ZZZ.org.au/support. Continue looking after this station, because this station looks after us as announcers here. It really makes a huge difference to what you're listening to. You know that people are getting the real deal when this organization looks after us. The sublight is going off again. Yay! I'm going to assume that I've had 4 subscribers this morning and that it is not a test of any of the lights. So thank you for subscribing, 4ZZZ. We love you. We love you so much, and particularly any trans and gender diverse listeners out there. We love you dearly. There are trans and queer folk all through this building, all through 4ZZZ, all through the airways, sharing their insights and stories and thoughts from the community. Yeah. Support us. 4ZZZ.org.au/support. And thank you so much for listening to Transmission. Yo!
Thank you so much for listening to Transmission. See you next Tuesday, 9 to 10 a.m. on 4ZZZ.